Hello, sweet parents. Welcome to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away podcast. My name is Dr. Janet Steinkamp, and during each episode of When Our Adult Children Walk Away, I will provide my professional and personal insights, information and opportunities for your self-reflection and growth, tips and tricks to make every day count, and encouragement to keep moving forward. I'm here to help you dig deep and get down to the root causes so that you can find your way out of the darkness to a positive and lasting relationship. Grab your notebook and a pen, settle into your favorite chair, and let's get to it. Welcome to the When Our Adult Children Walk Away podcast. This is a space for parents and often adult children who are walking through the unbelievably painful experience of estrangement and who are learning how to grow through it. I'm Dr. Janet Steinkamp, and today's episode is called Surviving the Silence. We're going to look at how we find strength in the stillness, how we can maximize the time when it's quiet and we're not in contact, and we're going to look at strategies for surviving this without losing your mind. Now, if your adult child has asked for distance, if they've even gone no contact, you know how gut-wrenchingly painful this time can be. It's not just quiet, it's full of questions and confusion, anger, pain, disbelief, all of the different aspects of grief. Today, I want to help you understand what the silence can mean, what it can mean for you, and why respecting it matters. And like I said, we're going to look at how to survive it, not just emotionally, but with purpose. So let's start with understanding the silence. What does it mean? How do we get there? How come it's silent? Many adult children tell us that they ask for silence not because it's a punishment, although it often sounds like it and feels like it when they tell us, or they pull away. Often they use colorful language, they yell, they scream, they make accusations. At the end of the day, what the research tells us is that it's about safety and finding space to process some aspect of their life as an adult. They may be trying to make sense of their past in a way that they haven't before. They haven't through their own individual eyes. They want space to look at their past and their experiences without us in the conversation. They may be trying to understand who they are in the outside world, in context of a new set of friends, in a new family that they're building and growing. Or they may just be trying to find space to breathe, some distance from us so they can be themselves as an adult. Many of our adult children explain that they need space because they're working through something, some aspect, or a situation, and they don't trust that we can stay out of it. They don't trust that we can be a part of their process and be non-judgmental and keep our opinions to ourselves. They may fear that we, as the parent, will try to correct them, defend a position, or even step in and try to fix it. Instead, what they want us to do is simply listen, be there for them, listen openly, and keep our inside voice inside. Is one of the toughest things to do. It makes me chuckle because I can think of so many times when I could not, did not, chose not to do exactly that. It still happens. And it's not just with our adult children. We tend as human beings to want to share, pitch in, influence. And instead, what our adult children are asking us to do is refrain from those things and be present for them. So why is this important? Why are we talking about this? Why do we have to put up with it? I hear so many parents say, I should not have to put up with this. They owe me. I've done so much for them. How dare they? I would never have done this to my parents. I've said all those things myself. And those things aren't wrong. We're not wrong when we say those things or feel those things. Our adult children are asking us, actually telling us that things are different today. And when we push back the boundaries that they set, their request for silence or distance, their request for us to disengage and trust them to be doing the work that they need to do, we can unintentionally confirm our child's fear. If we don't respect their boundaries, every time we send a text, send an email, leave a voicemail, send a card, leave a note on their door, in the times that they've asked us for distance, no matter the message, even if all we're doing is saying, I love you, we are disrespecting their request. I asked my adult daughter, once we reconnected, how she knew when I was finally listening to her. And her response, it was kind of startling, her response was, when you stopped contacting me. I knew I had your attention and you were listening when you stopped. And she missed me. I gave her space to miss me. That's important. And it's counterintuitive. It is everything we were told not to do when we were raising our children. But respecting the silence doesn't mean we're agreeing with it. It only means that we are showing emotional maturity and restraint. We are modeling for them those things. So one way to think about the silence is like a season. It's not an end to the story. Maybe it's a chapter, maybe it's a phase. The ground may look really barren. It may look dark and quiet and cold. But growth is happening underneath for them and for us. And the sooner we can come to terms with the silence, understand it, respect it, and allow our adult children to be in their lives without our forcing our ways in, insisting in being a part of whatever it is they're going through, the sooner we can do those things, the sooner they can process and move through their own experience. Now, I'm not saying that if we just be quiet, they'll come running back to us. That's not how estrangement typically works. It's not how I've seen estrangement and reconnection work. It does mean, though, that however long it's going to take, we are not extending the clock. We're not adding time. And at least in my experience and the people that I've worked with, that is critical. We don't want to do anything that extends the estrangement. So let's talk about some survival strategies, because it really does feel like we're going to lose our mind. It does not make sense to us that we cannot be close to our adult child. We haven't done anything wrong, right? There was this explosion. Most often I hear about an aha moment or a snap where things went dark. What we don't understand is that for adult children, there was stuff going on in the background leading up to that. We didn't know it, we didn't hear it, we didn't see it, we didn't acknowledge it. Maybe it was there and we wanted to ignore it, needed to ignore it. It was too painful to look at it. But here we are in this silence, and you have a varying degree of silence in your life. You have your own circumstances and situation. The themes are fairly consistent in estrangement, and the strategies can be very effective regardless of the circumstances. So what I'm going to do is walk through 8 survival strategies, and I want you to apply them to your own circumstances. Adjust them and adapt them to fit your story. So number 1, the first strategy is to anchor yourself in reality. We have to be bold. We have to be brave. We have to be confident in ourselves, even when we're scared to death. Even when we feel like if we breathe wrong, we're going to make it worse. We need to anchor ourselves in the reality, in the truth, not just our perspective and our belief from our vantage point, but from a 360 perspective. We need to look at what's going on from our adult child's perspective, from the world context. Today's world is very tumultuous, and that's a reality for our adult children. It's a reality for us. So how does that play into it? We need to look at our own circumstances and how that translates for us and how it translates for our adult children. They are not us. Their perspective is not our perspective. Their perspective is real, and it's true for them. We don't get to tell them what they think and what's real. We did when they were children. We were able to help them navigate and understand their surroundings. We are no longer in that role. So we need to acknowledge what is rather than what we wish it were, rather than what we hope it is, rather than what our stories have told us it is over time. We need to look at the reality of what is right now. So try this. When you start saying to yourself, why don't they talk to me? What have I done wrong? Try, what can I learn from this? What do I need to be hearing differently? What can I learn from this new space, this new reality? So change the questions in your head from why, which are typically accusational, guilt-ridden, all kinds of negative stuff, and move into a what and a how. How can I maximize this? How can I listen differently? How can I react differently? Or, even better, how can I respond instead of reacting? And reality is painful. I'm not saying this is easy. As a matter of fact, this is excruciating. What I'm asking you to do, I understand, is terribly painful, challenging. It makes us vulnerable. We have to be humble. We have to go to the very core of our being to get to this stuff. And that's what our adult children are asking us to do when they say things like reflect. You need to reflect on yourself, Mom. You don't understand what you're saying, Mom. Dad, you are so off base. You are so out of touch with the world. That's what they're saying in those simple little statements, that they're such zingers. They know exactly how to hurt us. And yet the request behind that is fair, reasonable, and it's to our benefit. But to start, we have to anchor ourselves in reality, in the truth. Number 2, we need to manage our spiral of rumination. There's an episode that I have out called Catastrophizing. Same. Go and listen to that episode if you haven't already. We need to give our thoughts boundaries. We need to limit how long we can replay these painful memories. We re-traumatize ourselves. I can tell you stories from people who have not been able to stop talking about it. Everyone who says, "How are you?" gets the whole story. It's kind of like the commercial where somebody says, "How are you?" and the person starts talking about a rash that they have. People don't want to hear all of the details. And it's not in our best interest to rehash it all. We re-traumatize ourselves. It's also not in our adult child's best interest for us to be broadcasting our family situation. We'll talk about that a little later. So what I'm going to suggest is that perhaps you journal. Now, personally, I'm not a journaler. That wouldn't have worked for me. I need to talk about things. I need to say it out loud. So I actually did a lot of recording. I did a lot of recording and listened back to myself. If you choose this method, when you go back and listen, I suspect you may find things that you think, wait a minute, that's not quite right. That part of the story isn't quite how it happened. I need to rethink that. We can't hear ourselves until we listen to ourselves. Another option is when you're driving, talk out loud to yourself. I firmly believe that what stays in the dark grows in the dark. And by saying the truth to ourselves, physically, literally, saying it out loud to ourselves, we hear ourselves differently and we put air on really ugly things. And it reduces the power of them. You might choose to talk to a trusted friend. And if that is the case, Go back and listen to the episode on flying monkeys and well-intended people. I don't remember the exact name, but I'll put it in the podcast episode notes here. We talk a lot about how people who are so well-intended can turn into or be perceived by our adult children as flying monkeys. It's important that we avoid both of those things. It's important that we encourage people to have their own relationship with our adult child and not represent us, not speak on our behalf, not go in with a well-intended effort to mediate, reconnect on our behalf. Our conversations need to be direct and clear with our adult child. They need to know they can trust that they will have a conversation with us and it will stay in the vault. Now, if you're working with me, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about a lot of things very freely. Those conversations do not include the adult child or vice versa, the parent. Those conversations are meant for airing things that are really difficult to talk about. But it's important that you choose when and where and how you share those things. So you might try to fill the silence with stories to yourself, and don't believe everything you say. Don't believe everything you say on face value. Think about what you're saying. Think about aspects of the story that aren't quite right. They've morphed over time, or we've told ourselves some things to help ourselves feel sane, to keep ourselves from losing our mind, to find purpose. Dig through what we say to ourselves or what you say to yourself and find the real truth. So strategy number 3, we practice radical acceptance. Radical acceptance has become kind of a catchphrase. And basically what it means is that we accept even when we don't approve. It's surrendering to the truth of what is, even though we don't agree with it. We think it's wrong. My truth is not your truth. And often, the person we're talking to is not the person we're looking at. We're talking to a third party. Again, there are a number of episodes about coercive control, this particular topic. So go back and listen to some of those episodes. Again, I'll list them in the podcast description so you can find them easily. Some of them you're going to need a subscription for. There may be some that you don't. But acceptance whispers, I can't change them, but I can change how I respond. My truth is not their truth. I can accept their truth without it meaning my truth is not real. The same with apologies. We can own the kernel of truth and make our apology without it meaning that the other person is responsible for their kernel of truth. Everybody brings something to the party, and our taking responsibility for our contributions in an estrangement does not mean the other person holds no responsibility. It's a really powerful concept once you can get a hold of it. So strategy number 4, rebuild your identity beyond parenting. So ask yourself, who am I outside of being a parent? So my role now as parent, I've been told by my adult child, my role as a parent is done. And vice versa. You may be listening as an adult child whose parent has said to them, I'm done being your parent. You're on your own. Figure it out. You don't need me anymore. I'm out of here. I support you. I encourage you. This isn't my mess to clean up. In those cases, we need to start building our identity without our adult child, without our parent. We can start to explore long neglected interests. We can turn to our creativity. We could simply go find some volunteer work. There are so many people in this day and age that need help. If nothing else, call your local school food bank and see what they need. I mean, that's a great place to start. We've got all kinds of hungry people in this country right now. And frankly, any country that you're listening from. The world is in a tough spot right now, and there are people who can benefit from our help. So rebuild your identity beyond parenting by rediscovering and rebuilding your confidence and your emotional stability. Estrangement shakes us to our core, no matter who we are and what role we have in it. We are shaken to our core. What we have known is no longer. Does that mean everything in our past is false? Nope. That does not mean that everything in our past is false. So how do we sort through that? Start digging into that and rebuild. That's a great strategy for these quiet times. Again, not easy and not pain-free. Really powerful. So when you're looking at reflection, consider this. Close your eyes and picture the version of yourself that existed before this pain. What did that person love to do? Where did you find energy and companionship and joy outside of being a parent? I have some friends who decided they're going to start going to concerts. They go to concerts, doesn't matter what the venue is or the music. They go to concerts. That's how they have decided to spend their time during this quiet time. And there's actually some science behind that. Music stimulates a part of our brain and recenters that specific area of the brain. Do a little reading on that. It's called the vagus nerve. So how might you as a person have wanted to grow before that you were not able to do when you were a parent or in the early years of your adult childhood, and you want to grow now? Areas that you never thought you'd have a chance to get to. I worked with a physician. I was coaching on some communication issues. Really intense work. He was a neurosurgeon. And he found that in order to separate himself from the intensity of his medical work, his patient work, and the environment that he performed his medical work in, he really needed to find an offset that was equally as intense. So he went and got his pilot license. That would never have occurred to me. That would not have worked for me as a human being. It worked like a charm for him. He was able to completely disconnect from the negative and more painful aspects of his world, and he found freedom and a new level of self-confidence in getting his pilot's license. So I'm suggesting that you find whatever that is for you. Strategy number 5, develop emotional regulation skills. Emotional regulation. Emotional regulation when things are calm and good, super easy. If it's not easy for you, we have a different conversation to have. On a regular daily basis, people need to be able to move through their day with emotionally regulated. It's the times we get triggered, or the unexpected happens, or there is a series of compounding events that we don't get to re-regulate. So something happens, we're not able to bring ourselves back to zero, something new happens. It starts compounding. So we need to find some emotional regulation strategies and skills for the times we're triggered, for the times things don't go as we want, for the times that are completely baffling, come at us out of the blue, we don't expect, we don't understand, and they're unfair. They're not true. They're not based on actual information. So we can do that by learning some calming practices, some deep breathing, some mindful exercises, some physical outlets. Depending on what works for you as a person, we need to find some practices that we can de-escalate quickly. Another example from medicine. Worked with another surgeon who, when things got stressful in the procedure room, he went straight from 0 to 60. Colorful language, high volume. By the way, I'm not using gender specifically. I'm just deferring to him. And needed to build in a moment to catch himself. So this was a time when there were x-ray boxes in the surgical suites, and this person would stop what they were doing at a point where it was safe for the patient, walk over to the x-ray box and look at the x-rays. Not necessarily because they needed to, but because it built a pause. And then would return to the side of the surgical bed and get back to work. It gave that person time to take a deep breath. Build in some times to do that. Say you have to go to the bathroom. Put your phone on mute and say a few colorful words out loud. Make sure you're on mute if you do that. Give yourself a 24-hour rule before you respond to texts or emails. 24 hours to respond is reasonable. It doesn't always feel comfortable. We want to respond, in the moment. And oftentimes we look back and regret it. So build in some emotional regulation strategies. Emotional regulation is not denial. It is self-respect in motion. I love that. Emotional regulation is not denial. It is self-respect in motion. Okay, strategy number 6. Strengthen your support network. This is tricky in estrangement. We have to sort out our support network and understand who can be trusted with what level of information. We want to avoid the people who gather data to go be popular. The chatterboxes, the people who spread news because they get positive reinforcement by having information other people don't. We want to seek connection with people who are not blaming, who they're not judgmental. They're going to encourage healing. They're going to encourage us to be our best selves, not sit in resentment or denial. Oh, they didn't mean that. Oh, you just forget about that. They're just being childish. No. What was said or done hurt. It was real for us, and we need to find a way to deal with it. We're not asking for encouragement to dismiss it. We want to find a coach. We want to find support groups. We want to find a spiritual connection, perhaps. A word of warning here, the Facebook groups that are out there can be very engaging and offer all kinds of advice. What I have seen personally and from a professional perspective is that they can also be incredibly seductive and damaging, both professionally and personally. I do not engage in the Facebook groups anymore. I do have a very small Facebook group on my Facebook profile. It's very small and we're not particularly active. I do want people to know that they can post and they will hear from me pretty immediately in that group. And I do post a somewhat semi-regular basis. It is not the outlet that people need all day, every day. Those outlets, I believe, are not Facebook groups. We also seek strength through therapy. And yes, I do believe there is an aspect of estrangement that can benefit from therapeutic support. There are mental health aspects that can result from an estrangement: depression, anxiety, alienation, loss of self-confidence, confusion in your identity. Therapy can help all of those things. Therapy is not the solution to estrangement. It may be the solution to some of the residual mental health related aspects of our experience. Estrangement alone is not a mental health condition. That is a different animal, and that's the work that I do. Coaching, consulting, advising, helping people understand communication, what we say, how we intend it, and how it lands. We look at the interactive aspect of estrangement. So that's number 6. For example, choose people who hold space for you, not those who hand you more pain. If something is feeling off, you feel worse when you walk away. You feel empowered but in your anger or your despair. It is not a place that is holding space for you. Strategy number 7. I'm going to suggest that you find strategies to reframe your narrative. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier. We're going to shift from my adult child abandoned me, abused me, neglected me, is punishing me, to a narrative that is, we're both navigating a really painful time. I don't understand it right now. I don't trust that I know what I'm doing. I don't trust that they know what they're doing. But we're in this together. They have not abandoned me because in most cases, there's still some level or aspect of connection. It may not be through us directly. It may be through a spouse, a different child in our family. It may be through a common friend, a common prayer group, a Facebook profile where we've not been cut off. If there is any degree of connection, they have not abandoned us. Now, when they go no contact, it's a different story. It still isn't necessarily abandonment. The narrative there may be, what do I need to do to leave the light on so they can return? I know adult children say to us regularly, I'm never speaking to you again. Don't ever contact me again. You are dead to me. We may have said that to them. And as definitive as those statements are, I have seen people come back from that, person after person after person. Those statements do not have to be the end of the story. They don't. We do need to change the narrative around them. Okay, we said some really ugly things. I did, they did. It was not good. I messed up, they messed up. Whatever the story is, base it in the truth, in the facts, and hold your own stuff. What did you bring to the party? Change the narrative, reframe it. This reframing really helps us respond with empathy. It helps us respond and not react. It helps us give ourselves grace and self-acceptance. And it helps us issue grace and acceptance to our adult child. They are not at their best in estrangement, nor are we. They may feel in the early stages, for them, whatever that means, relief, calm, quiet. I talked to my daughter again when she came back to the family and said, tell me about your grief. And I talked to her about my model of grief. I think there's a series of seven episodes on the podcast related to grief. And she said, Mom, you don't get it. I didn't grieve when I left. I grieved the whole time moving up to when I left. When I left, the grieving stopped. I found relief. I found quiet. I found freedom. I felt like a weight had been lifted off of me. Now, this is my adult child that I eat dinner with 3 times a week. We talk, a couple times a week. Probably more than we should, but as long as she's initiating, I feel okay about that. It's different in every story, but you need to reframe your narrative from the ugly, nasty, trauma-based position to the constructive, mature, respectful position. When your story changes, when you can change and believe the new narrative, so does your posture, your emotional posture, your heart, your feelings, your voice, your tone. Our adult children can read us better than anybody on the face of this earth. They know when we're sincere and when we're being transparent. They know when it's fake. Fake won't sell. Fake won't work. I've tried it. I'm telling you from experience, without even knowing I was doing it. I tried to sell the snake oil. It didn't work. Both to me, it didn't work for me, and it didn't work for them. So find your new narrative. Find a narrative you know is true and authentic for you, and work from there. Number 8, last strategy. Use silence as your mirror for growth. Look for your blind spots. Look at yourself and see yourself the way others see you, how they hear you, how they experience you. I wear a ring that says, do no harm and take no shit. My life for years, excuse the French, was based on take no shit. What I had to do was understand my role in that message. And I had to make sure I was doing no harm. Now, both parts of the mantra work. They're necessary. They're important. One without the other is imbalanced for me as a person. Once I figured out I needed balance in both, life felt a whole lot different. And I responded to people differently, and they responded to me differently. That's not to say it was that simple or easy. It's one example of one element of my experience with my adult child, and in every relationship. Find yours. Reflect on your communication patterns. Do you interrupt, defend, assume? Do you try to explain? Do you, in today's term, gaslight? Do you try to change another person's experience by selling them on yours? There is a difference between explaining, apologizing, and making amends. There's an episode dedicated to exactly that. Gaslighting is a big deal in today's world. It used to be, we would call it reframing. So somebody would say, Cal, that person was so rude to me. And I might say, well, maybe they were just having a bad day. Maybe they're not aware of themselves. Maybe they're not. So it's making excuses for that person. Well, that's okay the first time or two. If that continues, nope, I'm not going to accept that, but I'm going to address it in a way that is mature, respectful, compassionate, and still hold my boundary of self-respect. So use this silence as a teacher. There's this big thing, the let it movement, and there's a lot to be said for that. I don't agree with all of it, and I think in estrangement we can take it too far pretty easily. Again, another episode on let it versus let them go and screw them. There's a big difference between those two. Again, excuse my language, but think about that. Put a mirror on yourself. Shine a light on your own behavior and your voice. During this time of silence is the time to do that. I will say often, you've probably heard me say this if you listen to other episodes, I practice at the paint department at Home Depot. I go from 0 to 60 in that department. I cannot tolerate the lack of what I perceive to be lack of training that these people have, their lack of skills, their lack of preparation. They're doing the best they can with, in many cases, very little training and preparation. So how do I get mad at them about that, right? It's not their fault. They're trying to do the best they can with what they have, which is the case for most people in most situations. It's just, for me, it's a great place to practice my patience, my maturity, my communication skills. And if I feel like I'm not up to it that day, I can go shop for something else in that store. Try it again later. Find your place. Okay. So I want to take a moment to talk about the personal growth and reflection aspect. We've talked about it here quite a bit, but what I want to say is when we stop fighting the silence, we can begin to master it and maximize it. This isn't time to waste, people. This is time to maximize, to use to our advantage, to put to work for ourselves. Think of it as a classroom. This is a time for you to take notes and learn, read, listen, study. There are all kinds of resources now related to estrangement. You need to be careful. You need to look for resources that are reliable and professional, trustworthy, valid. I have a few options that I know to be trustworthy on my website. I've learned a lot myself from people like Dr. Josh Coleman. Again, we don't agree on everything. I think he's got some great fundamental research out there and some perspectives that are excellent. Maybe not as practically applied as what I offer. And so that's why he and I make a good balance. I did some training under him. We have talked on and off over the years. I respect him. And I would suggest if you haven't looked at his work that you take a look. Use this silence as a teacher. Use this silence as a teacher. I'm going to encourage you not to judge yourself. do this work without judging yourself? I often hear people say, man, did I mess up? No, that's probably true. It's probably a true statement. But you don't have to judge yourself for that. You don't have to speak harshly to yourself about that. Yeah, we make mistakes. We make a mess of things. We go off the rails. We lose our minds. And it's a pretty human experience. So do our adult children. We don't need to judge that for them. We don't need to judge it for us. What you can do is think about what peace looks like right now. How do you find peace? Where do you find peace? And to what degree can you find peace? What's reasonable? It isn't a should, it isn't a would, it isn't a could. It's a what can you? What is reasonable? And think about how you want to show up. Even if reconciliation never happens, how do you want to move forward in your life? You only get one. They only get one. I only get one. So how do we use it? Give yourself grace. In this silence, you may not find peace. It may be unattainable right now. So what can you do to maintain and go on in a way that is mentally healthy and self-respectful and takes care of your human needs? Sleep, food, water, social interaction, and a sense of purpose. How do you love and trust that someone can love you? You are lovable, no matter what the mistake was, no matter what led you to this podcast. You are lovable. 25% of estrangements, we estimate from the research, stem from abuse. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, substance abuse, some level of defined abuse and recognized by the medical and mental health professions. That kind of abuse often requires estrangement. I'm the first to say it. If those are your circumstances, you may require estrangement. How do you move on then? In my opinion, you seek mental health support and care. You find people who are qualified to work with you in your particular circumstances. My work is in estrangement. I work primarily with the other 75%. Estrangement that comes out of miscommunication, disconnect, reactions, and hurtful words, out of not listening, not hearing each other. So how do you want to show up and navigate this silence for yourself? So I want you to take a deep breath. You're not powerless. You're not. You may feel it, but you are not. You can choose to be, or you can find your power, and you can begin preparing and becoming a better version of yourself. We can do that every day. I can sit here and tell you, after 7 years of this work and over 12 years working with my daughter through the entire continuum of estrangement and back, that every day I could be a better person. I can grow and learn every day. I do. I try to every day. I try to be a student of the school of life, as my son says. I am a student of the school of life. Take a deep breath and look for growth in the stillness. Consider mediation or prayer. Look for creative ways to express yourself, painting, writing, music, and speaking out loud to yourself. You are not waiting for your adult child. You are waiting with your adult child. You are waiting with yourself. And that's sacred work. It could not be more important. So, in closing, I want to say again, silence doesn't mean that the story is over. It doesn't mean the end. It's a different chapter. It's a tough chapter. It can be quiet and full of growth. It can be full of humility and courage. It needs to be for you to become the person that you need to be for your adult child. Today, we have explored why the silence matters. We've talked about how we can teach ourselves and what we can learn from the silence. We talked about 8 strategies for surviving this time with purpose, with intention, and with self-compassion and hope. Now, if you found this episode really spoke to you, you found some value in it, I would think you might have to listen to it a few times. To get the full value, I want to invite you to share it with somebody else who you know might benefit from it. And if you'd like some guidance, if you'd like to talk about this further, jump over to my website. The link is in the podcast episode description, whenourdadultchildrenwalkaway.com, and leave me a note, or you can email me at janet@jesteinkamp.com. I do respond to email. I can't promise it's in 48 hours anymore because my box fills up pretty quickly. If you've not heard back from me in 3 days' time, then something's wrong. I don't have other people respond, it's only me, and so I want you to reach out a second time. Again, email or leave a message on the website. If you leave a fan note in Buzzsprout in response to this podcast, I cannot respond to you. So please leave contact information. There's no way for me to respond to fan mail. In closing, remember, this is a healing process. Healing is happening, even in the silence, and you are not alone.